to our third episode of Vintage City Stories, where we highlight the people and projects that help shape our great city of Elizabeth here in Union County, New Jersey. I'll be your host, Don Treesh, and I'm joined here today with Isaias Rivera from Rivera Speaking Academy. Welcome, Isaias.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you coming out here today. I know you had a long travel to get on over here. Can you give us, as a public speaking expert, your own version of an elevator pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that, because that's very important. Because it's very important to understand what I do so you can understand what I do. You see, back in 2011, Don, I was working for the mayor in the city of Orange. And guess what? In his entire staff, I was the only Latino in his administration.
Wow.
And then he was invited to speak at this Hispanic gala event. But he had a conflict. He couldn't do it. So he's looking at everyone, and he looks at me. He says, well, Isaias, I can't think of anyone better to represent me. Would you be able to speak on my behalf? In other words, would I be able to represent the city of Orange? And I said, sure, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. I was honored. I'm like, these are Spanish, these are my people, so mi gente, I got this, Mayor. No problem at all. Remember, this is 2011. I'm still relatively fresh out of college. At the day of the event, it was in Newark, right by Market Street, one of those big, tall buildings. Mm-hmm. And it's a gala event, so I was wearing a nice black tuxedo. I was so excited to be there. I got up there, chandeliers. It was all the way in the top. You could get a nice view of the city. Beautiful. And the food was amazing. I'm talking about real Hispanic Latino food. They had Puerto Rican food. They had arroz con gandules and pernil. It was delicious. Delicious food. I'm sitting at my table, and I'm having the time of my life, Don. And then the president, he gets on the microphone, and he says, unfortunately, the mayor of the city of Orange couldn't make it today, but we have someone better. And now he's hyping me up. He says, we have a rising young Latino star here in New Jersey with us. His name is Isaias Rivera. And thunderous applause everywhere. So I get up, Don, and I was confident, and I was bold, and I was ready. And when I got up there, and when everything was said and done, I gave him a pathetic speech. It was horrible. It was so bad, Don, that the guy, the president, the one who was hyping me up, he was just looking at the floor. He wouldn't look me in my eyes, almost embarrassed to even introduce me. And not only that, I go to the table, and the people in the table that were with me, they were looking at me like, man, we got to sit next to you.
That's rough.
But I remember that night driving back home there on MacArthur Highway. No music, nothing. I was just there in my car reflecting. And I said to myself, because that lit a fire, I said, I will never, ever again let that happen to me. Never, ever. And from that point on, Don, that lit a fire in me. And I dedicated myself to the art of public speaking. I spent hours, days, years upon years studying, analyzing, watching TEDx talks, watching YouTube videos, getting books, really understanding the concept and how to speak properly. I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on courses, on materials, on storytelling, on mentors and coaches, and I finally cracked the code, Don. In 2020, I founded and started the Rivera Speaking Academy. And today I find myself coaching CEOs, business owners, everyday professionals, so they can speak with confidence, with clarity, and with purpose. Because I know how it feels, and no one should have to go through what I went through. In other words, I let my long road be your shortcut.
Wow, that is inspiring. I feel like not only did I get a little bit of secondhand embarrassment on that story, because that is quite powerful, might have to get some lessons from you on hosting afterwards. Sure. We'll have to see. But thank you so much for that introduction and highlighting, where you've come from and how you got to this point. Could you tell us about your mission and vision within the Speaking Academy?
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that I'm doing right now is really helping people to tell compelling stories. Because I remember a couple years ago, I was at this networking event, and they get like this nice little box, and they're pulling out these business cards, and they called one of my friends. He's an attorney, and he gets up on the mic, and mind you, he is passionate. He is a dedicated man. He's good at what he does, and he starts explaining what he does. And the moment he starts opening his mouth and talking, everyone's like on their phone, everyone's chatting. They just completely forgot what he said, unengaged at all. And it broke my heart to see him because he's really good at what he does. And that's what I noticed with a lot of business owners, a lot of CEOs, and everyday professionals. They struggle to communicate effectively. They struggle to tell their story. And that's why they're struggling sometimes with their business. Because they could be a great expert in their hard skills, in their field. But if they can't use this effectively, then they come off as salesy, as giving a pitch, and they tell me all the time, Isaias, I do not want to sound salesy. So one of the visions is to help them craft their way to deliver and use their voice very effectively.
It's very inspiring, and I think that a lot of individuals who do, catch this on their feed, they're going to recognize that in themselves. Nobody wants to come off as pushy or salesy or anything like that.
Correct.
So I'm sure there's a ton of value there.
Absolutely.
Talking about kind of projects that you may have been working on, I'm sure there's always new ways of effectively communicating. Can you talk about something that you're kind of proud of that you've completed recently in that realm?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I teach is storytelling. And what I've been able to find out is this approach of telling your business story, your origin story, or your why story is not only going to help you as a business owner to get more sales and to get your customers engaged, but this helps everyday professionals finding a job. One of the things that I'm noticing, I'm very proud of, in the past few months, I've been helping job seekers tell their stories. Because usually the first question you'll get asked at a job interview is, tell me about yourself. All the time, standard. 99% of the time they're going to ask that.
Right out the gate.
And then one of the first things that everyone says, well, I have my MBA, I have this, I have that, I have X amount of experience. And they go on and list their resume. And I tell people, don't even do that anymore. I want you to tell them your why story, why you're here, because they have your resume. And what I've been noticing is that when people start sharing their why story of why they want this job, why they're here, it's been leading to job placements. So it's something very incredible. Not only am I helping business owners get better sales and better clients, but at the same time, job seekers to share their story in a very effective way that they nail the interview and they get the job.
It connects the passion.
Exactly.
It helps get somebody on your team and be able to communicate that effectively.
Because from a manager's point of view, now they don't see you as a candidate. They see you as Don. They see you as Frank. They see you as a Luis or a Maria. Now they see the individual, the person. Same thing with the business owners. Don't even tell them how many years you have or how many revenue or how many clients. No, what products you sell. Tell them why you're doing this. And people buy into trust, not the service or products.
Buy into stories. That's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about stories and vision, right? Communicating that. What do you envision for the city of Elizabeth here in the next, 5 to 10 years? I mean, you've been here for quite some time. You're very involved in a number of different aspects within the city. What is your vision for that?
Absolutely. As it relates to my business and also serving as a member in the Elizabeth Board of Education, one of the visions that I see is that you want to use this communication skill beyond than just a tool. When I ask people, how do you use your voice? Or what do you think of your voice? What do you do with your voice? People will say, well, I just use it. I just talk. And that's a tool. Think of a hammer, screwdriver. You use the tool, you do it, and then you put it away. Your voice, this communication, it should be an instrument. And what do musicians do? They play with their voice. They perfect it. They master it. They continue to develop and get better at it. So I always tell people that your voice is a musical instrument of communication. And that's my vision, that people can effectively communicate a lot better.
That's an important piece, I think, for people to chew on, right? They're so used to just speaking generally. But I know first and foremost that anyone who is a musician or a singer would say, oh, you hit the nail on the head. Because they recognize that from an early age, if they're in tune or whatever it might be. But the average person that might not think about it in that capacity, it's a very important perspective to help with personal development for sure.
Definitely.
So just a couple of questions to round out our time here today. And this one's a little bit loaded for each person because I know there's a lot that circulates around this, but who in your personal or professional network right now has been a great inspiration to you?
I have to say lately, I would have to recognize my coach, Craig Valentine. He's the 1999 world champion of public speaking.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
That is a thing.
Wow.
Believe it or
Okay.
not. There is a competition. There's a contest for that. But not only just as a champion, he's a mentor, guide, and he's really helped me a lot, especially these last few months on storytelling and on public speaking and how to become more of an effective communicator. I value the importance of coaching and mentorship. Very important. You can read all the books in the world. You can watch all the videos. But even the best professionals, they have coaches. And I had to swallow that pill and learn from someone that has a better, bigger vision than I do and guide me into becoming what I eventually want to become.
Well, all the greats, they need guidance.
Yeah.
You know, any great athlete
Absolutely.
requires a coach. How did you meet Craig? Where did you
Well,
guys
it was
get
part of my
acquainted?
story when going back to when I suffered from that from that embarrassment.
Yeah.
I was looking up coaches and mentors, and I came across his training programs and contacted him, and that was the beginning of a great friendship.
Did you kind of feel out a couple of different coaches before you landed
Yeah,
on
there's
him?
different styles, there's different ways, and
Yeah.
what I've learned is there's different communication styles, there's different ways of speaking, and it's been very insightful. And he's been one to help me understand it.
That's
Absolutely.
great. I'm glad that you found that match.
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult. It's a process in and of
Yeah.
itself, you know, and taking the leap to accept help as an individual, you know, kind of swallow that pride.
Yeah,
That's the first step to
Yeah.
success, right?
absolutely.
Could you provide us with a piece of advice for some of our young leaders here in Union County and Elizabeth who might be trying to find their path forward? You know, they might be graduating college or high school or just stuck in a job, and they're looking for that next thing. You know, what type of advice could you provide to them?
The one advice that I would give is this Japanese word. It's called kaizen. Kaizen means constant change. In other words, you have to constantly be evolving, constantly be changing, especially in business. If you continue to do the same thing you always do,
Forget
you're
it.
going to be out of business. Well, guess what? So does personal development. You have to constantly be changing, constantly growing, because if you're not learning, you're not growing, and if you're not growing, you're dead.
That's it.
And there's a lot of people that they're quote unquote living, but inside they're not growing.
That fire's gone out, that passion.
Exactly. So if there's one piece of advice, continue to develop, continue to grow, and get a coach, get a mentor.
Could you just give us some insight into anything that you're doing special right now with within your business? Anything you want to plug for any upcoming events? You know, just to educate the public on some things to come from you and your operations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I'm working on is developing an online course. So right now I do a lot of one-on-ones and personal growth and remote live type of training with organizations and nonprofits and individuals. One of the things that I'm working on is putting an online course online so people can now, all over the world, can be able to benefit with some of the training that I provide.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to checking that out for
Absolutely.
sure.
And another thing, hopefully we'll do a TEDx in Elizabeth. We'll also be doing a lot of projects, doing
For
some
sure.
great things at Venting, doing some workshops. So you'll definitely see me around. I'll definitely be involved.
Well, you're always in the neighborhood, which I
Absolutely.
greatly appreciate. So,
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank you again so much for your time today and your insight into this, everything that you're doing, and look forward to having you back on in the near future.
Will do, man. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
All right.